This week on Breaking Bullying, we are going to learn the way of the Cobra on how to handle bullying. So I'm going to hit that music and get started. You might know my next guest as Deacon Sharp from Bold and the Beautiful and Young and the Restless. Or for me, I know him as Karate's bad boy, aka Mike Barnes, Sean Kanan. Sean, thank you for coming on today.
Tim, thanks so much. It's good to be with you.
I'm like got geeking out because I'm a big Karate Kid fan. So I was like, yes, Mike Barnes. I hated you in Karate Kid Part 3, but I love you as a person.
Well, I don't blame you.
So, Sean, let's get right to it. When you were in
Sure.
third grade, you ended up finding yourself hiding behind a short wall. What was going on?
Yeah. Yeah. When I was a young kid, I was this chubby uh, kid with a bad haircut and glasses. And I was one of probably five Jewish kids in the whole school. It wasn't exactly the trifecta for popularity. And, I found myself the target of a lot of bullies for a while. And so that was a story you were recounting about one of the many times that I was trying to uh, make it back to my house for lunch and not get spotted by the gang of older kids, bullies that used to stalk me.
Was it always the same kids?
No, they like to mix it up. They
Like
were
mixed-
different kids, so they bring someone in from the bullpen.
Was there one certain kid that was like your true bully? Like always let
Yeah, I had a couple. And they were older kids, which I really it's one of, we all think of bullies, we hate bullies, but there's something about it when it's like an older kid picking on a younger kid. One of them was our neighbor who lived like two streets up, and so I would always see him. I was always in his crosshairs. But yeah, there were a couple in the neighborhood that were frequent flyers for me.
what kind of stuff did they do to you?
There was a lot of anti-Semitic abuse, verbal abuse. It was physical sometimes. Um, you know, Sometimes I got away, sometimes I didn't get away. As I got older, and I wound up starting to study martial arts and work out, and got rid of the glasses and the bad haircut, and got in better shape. Slowly but surely, I didn't get bullied anymore.
So did your bullying start in third grade or did it start before that?
Oh, geez, I think it probably started a little earlier than that. Yeah, I think it probably started around around first or second grade.
Were you kind of like the loner in school at that age? Or did you have like a group of friends to kind of have your back?
No, I didn't. I was kind of a loner. I've always kind of been kind of a loner. I'm not a real joiner, even as an adult. That doesn't mean I can't be a team player. I can be a team player, but I just my dad's an amazing guy. My father uh, belongs to like 50 different organizations in um, what was my hometown, still is my hometown where he still lives. And he's still involved with all these different things. And it just kind of was never really for me. I always kind of like to do my own thing.
Yeah. How did the bullying stop for you?
Well, like I said, as I took martial arts, my confidence grew. I learned what it was to stand face to face with a guy and, have to, uh, engage in sparring. And um, slowly but surely, I grew physically, I got stronger. Um, and, there were definitely times when I had to put it to use. And, you know, in time, word got around that I wasn't the guy that was the target anymore.
So when you had to put it to use, um, what can you say what happened? Like how did that all happen?
I mean, I remember one time in particular, I was riding the school bus, and this guy was picking on this kid was picking on this girl, and he and I traded words, and you know, fists were thrown, and I wound up getting suspended.
Really, for
And
sticking up for somebody.
yeah, yeah, I was sticking up for her, sticking up for me,
Yeah,
and I mean, listen, fighting is something that I really think is something that should be a
yeah.
last resort always. But unfortunately, there are times when you simply can't rationalize with somebody, and if you try to walk away and you can't, or you feel like you're in imminent danger of getting hurt, then I'm kind of a proponent of striking first, so to speak.
Did you join martial arts because you were bullied? Was that kinda like your motivator to start?
No, I actually no. This is how it started. So I actually started boxing, and I was boxing at this gym for a very short amount of time. It was on the south side of Youngstown, Ohio, and it was a rough area. And when my parents kind of figured out that this was a gym that was really kind of an incubator for guys that were trying to get out of their socioeconomic situation and pursuing boxing professionally, my parents were like, okay, we're getting you know, our nice son from the suburbs out of there. And my father, we had a chain of jewelry stores, but early on, some of them sold electronics. And I remember some of the stock boys were showing pictures of their karate class, and it was in my hometown. And my parents said, maybe that would be a good alternative to boxing. I didn't really want to take karate at first. I really liked boxing. You got to remember, in 1976, Rocky had
Yeah.
come out, so there was that boxing mania was still, really at the forefront. Um, but I decided to take classes, and I liked it almost immediately. I was just bitten by it, and it's something that has stayed with me all my life.
Were you also a tournament competitor like you were in the TV show?
I did compete in tournaments. I won a few tournaments for kata, not for kumite. I did compete in kumite, but I didn't win. I won primarily in kata.
Okay. So fast forward to your, I guess, late teens, early 20s. I was thinking when you were
Hmm.
cast in Karate Kid 3.
Hmm.
What was it like to play the bully? Like, did you get
It was
yeah,
interesting. Well, it was interesting because I, having come from a background of being bullied, and then ultimately going on to play this character that's this iconic bully. Um, Ironic. That's the word that comes to mind. And I think on some level, I probably drew from a lot of the experiences that I had. But what I was drawing was, a lot of the probably the pent up rage that I had um, from when it was happening to me.
did anything that you did to Daniel, any of that happen to you in real life?
No one ever broke my karate teacher's bonsai tree. Let's see.
Did they show up to your house
Um,
or in your backyard?
oh, they would show up to my house. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they would show up to my. Um, no, I think Daniel had it a lot worse.
Oh, wow. So when you played that character, Mike Barnes, do you let that, like, do you think back to that time when you were bullied and kind of let that anger out as you're acting? Did you get a chance to do that?
You know, I probably subconsciously tapped into some of that, but I'll be honest. The primary motivating source of anger for me, um, specifically at the All Valley tournament, came from my disappointment, frustration, and anger at how I was treated by the studio when I had my life threatening injury,
Yeah,
and how I was
because
treated.
they gave
There were no, yeah, there were no balloons. There was no get well soon cards. It was, get back to the set in, I don't know, 10 days, 2 weeks max, or you're going to lose the job. And I was really pissed off at the way that I was treated. And, if I'm being completely honest, I was pissed off that it had happened to me.
yeah.
And, that's kind of victim mentality. And I got out of the victim mentality very quickly. And my why, my driving force became this. I felt like my sense of justice was affronted. In other words, I felt like this isn't right. I worked so hard to get this. And now, not only is it potentially going to be taken away from me because of the physical limitations from my surgery, um, but, the studio I feel like they're also against me, you know? And it fueled me, it drove me. And, I discharged myself against medical advice from the hospital, and I began rehabilitating myself immediately. And, I wound up doing all of my own martial arts stunts
Wow.
in the film.
Because you got injured on set. That's how you ended up in the hospital, correct?
Mhm. Yeah. I perforated my omentum, which I didn't even know what an omentum was. It sits on top of your greater intestine, I think. And long story short, I was bleeding internally. Christmas Day, 1988. I passed out in the Dunes Casino, was rushed to Humana Sunrise Hospital in Vegas, and was told that they didn't know if they could save my life. I was having extensive discomfort in my upper left thigh, which I thought was due to all the martial arts I was doing. So I was taking a lot of aspirin, which of course is a blood
Yeah.
thinner, exacerbated, exacerbated the bleeding. And I was really lucky. I'll tell you why. I drove to Vegas with a friend, and had I not had that accident on Christmas Day, and had we gotten back in the car and driven back through the desert, and I passed out there, I don't think I could have gotten to a level one trauma center that could have saved my life.
Wow.
I think I would have been in real trouble. Yeah.
Besides the studio reaching out to you when you were in the hospital, and they were just like, hurry up and get back to the set. You had like 1 week or so to get back. Did any of your cast,
A little longer than
no,
that. A little longer.
jeez, did anybody
Yeah.
like your castmates? I know you're brand new at that time because that was your first scene that you shot with Karate Kid 3, correct? And tossing yourself onto the floor.
Mm,
Did any your cast
yeah.
members come say say hi or give you any support?
No.
Oh man,
You know. That's okay. I mean, ultimately, it worked out the way it was supposed to, because of that. Like I said, it fueled me.
yeah,
You have to. It's a corny cliche, taking lemons and making lemonade, but there's a lot of truth to it. And I got dealt some shitty cards, but it also turned out to be one of the very best things to ever happen to me. I wouldn't trade that experience. Um, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I wouldn't trade it because it really showed me at a relatively young age two things. The first is it showed me my mortality. When you're that age, you think you're immortal and you're going to live forever. And I learned that that's not the case. I learned how fragile life can be. Um, but it also revealed a part of my character that I didn't know up to that point existed. And at least in that moment, in that snapshot of time, um, when the going got tough, I got going.
yeah,
You know, I I had no choice. There was just simply no way that I was going to lose that role. I recognized the importance of that role. I was very, very well aware, even before the film came out, that this was a life changing event for me.
yeah,
And I recognized that if I didn't finish the film, that was going to be one of the greatest regrets of my life, having had that opportunity and that I wasn't able to complete it. So I even told my father at one point, I said, Dad, if I can't finish this film, I don't want to live. Now, of course, that was very hyper
yeah,
dramatic, but I am an actor, so give me a break, right?
yeah. And I remember that All Valley scene very well. I'm guessing it's where Daniel is on the floor. He was afraid, and you went up to him and you were like cussing at him. Get up! You called him every name. Miyagi is crap.
Yeah,
I mean, so that was
yeah,
you
yeah.
just letting it all out at that moment.
That was
That was
it.
like,
Yeah, and I was I still had a you know completely unhealed wound at that point. Um, I always joke that it was a good thing that the Cobra Kai wore those black gis, because had I been wearing a white gi, you probably would have seen blood coming through.
wow, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and I just let go. They said just go for it. John Avildsen gave me a couple lines to say. Um, uh, Oddly enough, the lines John gave me were the ones that were sort of the Asian, racist Asian lines that I don't think that would have come to me.
Yeah.
But I think it worked for the character. I mean, I don't think now with the level of political correctness and everything like that, even for a reprehensible psychopathic bully like Mike Barnes, you would hear a lot of that stuff being scripted. And when I watch it now, I just kind of cringe. But I think it worked at that point in time because no one had ever spoken to Daniel like that. And no one had ever referred to Mr. Miyagi like that. And I think that's part of what really psychologically eviscerated Daniel and put him in a place where he was terrified.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna fast forward now a little bit, kind of beyond the Karate Kid. Now, I got this from your book. If you haven't read his book, it's The Way of the Cobra. Excellent book. I read your book like in 2 days. I was like hooked. And
Oh,
my
thank you, brother. I
ADHD
appreciate
doesn't
that.
focus that well, but I was like, all I heard was Mike Barnes yelling at me in the whole book the whole time. So it was great.
Come
But you've also, I mean, you to the outside, like people like me, we think you lived a perfect life, but you
on.
had some, downfalls in your life, but now you turn it
Sure.
around.
Mhm,
What can parents like looking as a parent telling your child who's being bullied? How can
mhm.
we explain that to a child that I know you're being bullied, your life sucks right now, but it's going to get better?
Yeah, bullying's a really tricky problem. Um, you know, it's become a pandemic now with cyberbullying because, back in my day, you get bullied on the way to school and, on the playground and going home. But now with, the hit of one keystroke, kids are getting bullied 24/7 to 1,000 different people put up on YouTube, which, it's in perpetuity, it's forever. Um, and when kids are getting bullied, um, for many of them, it seems like there's simply no alternative. There's no way out. And unfortunately, teen suicide is the fourth leading cause of death, among adolescents and teens. And bullying is a major contributor to that. And if I would offer any advice to parents, I would tell them this that you need to be observant, you need to be involved, you need to, your kid might only come to you one time. They might summon up the courage one time to say, listen, I'm getting picked on. And if they catch you at the wrong moment, you're busy or you're dismissive or you're on the phone and don't hear it, they might not do it again.
Yeah.
And that might make the difference between them taking their life or not. I think another part of it is that kids need to understand that if you're being bullied and you tell someone, that doesn't make you a rat. Okay. Kids have um, a sometimes distorted code of honor about that, even if they're being bullied. They don't want to tell anybody.
It's
Um,
embarrassing too. You don't want to go to your parents.
it's embarrassing, of course, and I understand that because I went through it. Um, I think the more we talk about it, I think the more teachers are aware about it, but there's so much craziness going on right now that a lot of teachers are worried to step in because, they don't want to get jammed up where they grab one kid
Yeah.
off another and suddenly they find themselves on the receiving end of a lawsuit or that, I mean, there's so many different nanoshades of gray that make this a more complex problem than it used to be.
Yeah.
I think the best advice is to help kids understand how to be civil with each other, how to have a strong sense of character, how to have a strong sense of identity, which comes from finding that thing that you're good at and then nurturing it so that you realize that you have something special to show the world, whether it's through music or athletics or debate team, or I don't know, basket weaving, whatever. Everybody's got a gift,
Yep.
right? Um, and but I really think that it starts at home.
Yeah.
The way we speak to each other, the way we speak to ourselves is important. You'd be amazed. Like in life, you can be your biggest cheerleader or your biggest heckler, depending on the way you talk to yourself. And a lot of kids who suffer from low self-esteem, you'll hear them saying, "Oh God, I'm so stupid," or things like that. And Bruce Lee said it. Your brain doesn't understand the difference from when you're joking or not when you say things like that. How you talk to yourself is really important. It's as important as how you you talk to other people and how you allow other people to talk to you.
Yeah.
And I'm obviously a huge proponent of martial arts. I mean, I would get every single kid uh, in elementary school and high school in martial arts. I think when kids know how to take care of themselves, bullies will think twice. I think kids who are bullies who have the benefit of martial arts training will learn empathy and compassion, humility, camaraderie, honor, and I think everybody would be better for having some kind of training like that.
Yeah. One thing I learned in martial arts that it's not a team sport. I used to play baseball when I was in 8th grade. I sat on the bench a lot because I sucked at it.
Mm.
I tried
Oh,
golf,
me too.
sucked at it. But martial arts, you can
Me
go as
too.
fast, as
Yeah,
slow as you want. And if you want to compete in a tournament, you can do that if you want. If you lose your first tournament, you can do the next one. There's no
sure.
limits to it.
I agree that it's not a team sport, but I also believe that when you join a dojo, that you are being integrated into a group of people that are all going through the same difficult but rewarding process, kind of like going to the military, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you're joining a
Brothers in
family.
arms.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a family.
yeah, and it's a great thing for kids, even if they're awkward, whatever. You get them into a dojo, and it's very likely that they're going to meet an older kid who's going to be assigned to help them with their techniques, and they're going to learn. Hey, you know what? There are older role model kids that I can look to, and they're going to see that other kids maybe are struggling with something, and they're going to all do it together. And I hopefully they will form some really good friendships in it. And as you said, yeah, it's not a team sport per se, but I think there's a tremendous amount of esprit de corps when you're part of a dojo.
Yeah. And it's also like your safe place because no one in your school is going to be a bully or pick on you because if you did
No,
that, you're in a big trouble. You're going to get kicked out.
yeah, because
Yeah.
that because then this if he's a good sensei or she's a good sensei, you're going to get your ass kicked by the sensei.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, you could always tell who was kind of behaving outside the acceptable parameters when my teacher would put his gloves on and say, "You, let's go."
Yeah.
And I found myself on the receiving end of that too. Not because I was a bully, but probably because I was not paying attention or doing something I shouldn't have. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Luckily for me, I think I sparred my instructor maybe a handful of times and he whooped my butt every time. But that's when I was
Well,
like a green
yeah,
belt. When I got a black belt, he never touched
he's
me.
the teacher. He's supposed to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. These days, like, um, as I run a martial arts school right now, is like we're not allowed to touch the kids. It's a different training atmosphere.
Yeah, that's a big problem. I think it's important to know what it feels like to get hit
Yeah.
for a couple reasons. First of
Well, you
all,
can hit the kids can
I
hit
think
each other. I can't spar my students.
well, yeah, okay. Um, okay, we used to get hit. But it teaches you that you don't want to get hit, but it also teaches you that although it hurts and it's a shock, you can power through it
Yep.
most times. And so you learn to have a respect for it rather than an abject fear of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I make sparring a requirement when you're advanced rank 'cause I don't want kids go through martial arts not learning how to take a hit
They have to.
or hit. You have to do it. You have to spar because otherwise, I read this somewheres. If you're doing martial arts and not sparring, it's called dance.
I would agree with
Yeah.
that. Or Tai Chi, right?
Yeah. That's probably even a
Yeah, I would
better
agree.
one.
I think sparring is very important.
Yeah. Early on, you mentioned bullying has become a pandemic, which I totally agree. And schools seem to be lost on how to fix it. Parents, some of the kids who are bullying, people say it's the parents' responsibility. Sometimes the parents can't control their own kid either. How do we is there a way to resolve bullying in the next 10 years? Or is it we
I go back. I go back to what I said, that it needs to start at home. It needs to start with teaching children how to be assertive without being aggressive, how to have a strong sense of self, how to be empathetic and compassionate, how to be of service, meaning helping others. And I think when you start turning out more, you can't turn out a fully formed human being as a child because they're still growing and learning, but you can equip them with some really good basic hardwiring,
Yeah.
okay? So that their default isn't, you know, shame and negativity and embarrassment and anger and all those sort of things that lead into fertile ground for bullying. Um, I think that having conversations about it is healthy.
Yeah.
I think creating an atmosphere where it is not okay to be bullying. This crap where kids put this stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
There has to be consequences for that. And it's so stupid too. These poor kids, they don't realize that they are putting out their job applications in 10 years because the internet's forever. And they're going to put something out and you know many many employers will ask for the passwords to your social media, or they will scour your social media before they hire you. And if that stuff's up there, from simply an insurance point of view, even if it was 10 years ago, you're not going to take a risk on
Yeah.
hiring someone that had explosive violence as a 16 or 17-year-old, and now as a 27-year-old college graduate is asking you for a job. I mean, why take the risk?
Oh,
So these kids need to realize that when they do stuff like that, they are really, really shooting themselves in the foot.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
you can't tell your employer, "I'm a good team player," but yet I'm also the bully. I bullied a kid 10
Yeah.
years ago. I posted
Yeah.
pictures. We talked about it starts at home. Parents, we gotta start teaching our kids very young, like 1 years
Yeah.
old. They have to learn that positivity. They have to get that positivity in their brain right now. Praise them for every good thing they do. Appropriate
I
discipline.
think I think I think praise them for every good thing they do. I don't know about that.
Okay.
I believe in praising them, but I mean this crap where
Well, this
people
is when
get
I'm talking about
ninth
when they're
place.
young, like they're toddlers.
I would even say when they're young. I mean, there's a lot of psychological evidence that sometimes allowing a child to cry without immediately attending to that need sometimes is an effective reinforcement way to keep them from um, getting linked up in their cerebral hardwiring, that when I act out or cry or that's how I get what I want.
Yeah.
No, of course I'm not saying when a child's hungry and crying, don't feed it. I mean, let's not be
No, I
crazy
get you.
here. But when a child throws a tantrum and the parent lets it go on and on. I mean, we've all seen it, right? When a child's acting like a complete ape in a restaurant, or throws themselves down on the floor in a supermarket crying,
Yep.
and the parents sort of indulge it. It's extremely destructive and detrimental to that child. They need to learn immediately that is unacceptable behavior. It's not going to be tolerated, and if you're going to do that, you're going to be disciplined,
Yep.
because kids that don't learn healthy parameters and discipline as small children and then going into young adulthood young adulthood, um, the slack gets picked up by the police frequently and the system, because when you act out like that in public, um, and you get caught and prosecuted, you're going to have consequences that are going to have, long-term effects in your life. And it's better to treat them as children, like, you know with the potential for consequences, because you're really helping them.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard a phrase before, if you don't train your kids, the police
So
will. So
the police will, and the flip side of that, the flip side, that stupid "everyone's a winner" mentality,
yeah,
is that you do praise the children, and you do give them self-esteem, and you do tell them when they are doing right. It's a balance. And I talk about in my book the difference between shame and toxic shame. And toxic shame is the kind of shame that's humiliating, embarrassing, and destructive. Shame can be a very effective motivator. The shame of knowing that you didn't do your best, the shame of behaving in a way that is, um, it's cognitive dissonance from how you should behave and you're not living up to it. That sort of thing. It's okay if that triggers shame, if it pushes you to do better and learn from it. But the toxic, humiliating kind of shame is the stuff that makes somebody retreat into, anger, embarrassment, and want to lash out and take it out on somebody else.
yeah,
I think.
yeah. Totally agree with you.
I mean, look, I'm obviously not a professional psychologist. This is just one guy's opinion, but I think there's some merit to it.
No, it's great. What are your thoughts on so-called participation trophies, where every kid gets a medal?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I
Yeah,
think it's ridiculous.
yeah,
The real world does not work like that. Um, you know, uh, Promotions are not given to reward mediocrity. Okay, how do you know what it's like? How do you know what it's like to win if you're always being told whatever effort you give is the same as everyone else's and everyone gets a trophy? For me, that's communism. Okay, listen, everybody in this country deserves equal opportunity. They do not deserve equal results. There's a lot of reasons why people don't get equal results, and and effort is a big reason. Okay, I mean, I think it's detrimental to kids when you basically let them know that, however you do, it's good enough, and you're going to get the same reward and recognition as the guy that or girl that did the best. No, give them something to aspire to.
yeah,
You know, it doesn't. I think schools and to a certain extent society is so worried about shaming kids. Okay. And, I guarantee that the Chinese right now aren't giving participation trophies. They're trying to find out which kid is the absolute best mathematician in third grade, so he can be the guy that does the best development of algorithms for AI.
yeah.
Okay. And I'll tell you, this is really going to come and bite us in the ass.
Oh yeah,
And these chickens are going to come home to roost uh, in the next couple years, in the next probably 7 to 10 years, when we find out that there were monumental educational mistakes made and sociological mistakes made with how we are rearing our children.
yeah. I remember back when I was in school, you could fail a grade. It was possible. You will take that grade over again.
Yeah,
That's
hell
not
yeah,
even
you
heard of
could.
anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And so what happens? Kids get passed along, and America is—I don't even know what the number is, but we are way, 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 way down on in the chronology of highest test scores,
yeah,
both verbally and mathematically. And this no kid left behind. I think that was a horrendous mistake. Kids get passed along.
yeah. It's
A school's job, a school's job is not to tell you what to think. It's to tell you how to think.
yeah,
That's when you get older. And when you're younger, it is to give you the basic tools that you need to prepare you for more abstract and critical thinking as you get older. Look, when kids are very young and their prefrontal
yeah.
cortex is not fully formed. Prefrontal cortex?
Filter
Maybe it's another
cortex.
part of the brain.
Yep, and then
Anyway,
amygdala is back
yeah,
in
but there's another part of the brain too. Your brain is still forming until you're probably 21, even
24.
22 years old. Yeah. And kids are very concrete thinkers. It's everything's very black and white. And then as they get older and begin critical thinking, then they start to see that there's shades of gray in things. But when they are concrete thinkers, math is concrete. You know, math is math is math. Okay, and they need to be taught. Um, I don't think that things need to be lowered to the lowest common denominator to accommodate everybody so nobody feels bad.
Yeah.
Okay. If a child is struggling, then that child deserves attention and needs to have every service possible to bring them up to where they need to be. But don't clip the wings of the kids that are, flying. I mean, that's soul crushing to take a kid that has a unique and obvious talent academically and not let them fly because you don't want other kids to maybe feel bad. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And
Let that kid inspire the rest of them.
correct. And the confidence rooting we're doing on those kids. I mean, we're taking away their confidence too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
low confidence kids or people get picked
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And and then if you've got kids that are really intelligent and you're kind of dumbing things down for them, what happens? Maybe they've got a little bit of ADHD and suddenly they're completely disengaged and they start seeking negative attention because they're not getting challenged academically. So they need some kind of stimulation,
Yeah.
and the inverse of that are the kids that are struggling academically and figure, screw it, I'm never going to get this. So, what the hell's the point anyway? I mean, I think I don't know. Look, I'm not a sociological educator, but maybe it would be best to put the kids that are at the top in one area where they get specific treatment that caters to their needs, and the kids that are struggling get special treatment that caters to their needs. It's not one size fits all when you're teaching kids. Look, Albert Einstein, they thought he was, they thought he was, had a mental disability, I
Yeah.
think, up until fourth grade.
Yeah.
Not everybody learns the same way. People learn auditorily, visually, kinesthetically. You got to figure out what the best way to reach a kid is, and then try and teach them that way. And this one size fits all doesn't work. And I get what the teachers are going to say. Well, how the hell do we do that without the resources? There's 40 kids in a class. That's a problem too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it's an easy fix. I mean, this is a multifaceted generational problem, but we need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Bullying, education, all of it.
And the sad part is the school district itself can't do it. It comes from state level, and
Yep.
it's that state level because the federal government doesn't touch it.
Yeah. 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 That's true.
Sean, thank you for coming on today. And if people
Thank
want to find you or read your books, how can we do that?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sean Kanan, or on Instagram, Sean.Kanan, got the blue check mark. And if you would like to get my books, you can get them at waythecobra.com. And, I always say that when you've written books, of course, you want to sell books, but I want as many people to read the books as possible because I know in every fiber of my being that the information in the books is catalytic. It's it's got the potential to cause a profound positive change if you read it and you put it into action. And I wish that when I was 13, 14 years old, somebody had given me these books. So please get them at wayofthecobra.com. And the audiobook for Way of the Cobra is coming out probably in the next 2 weeks. It's completed. I just got it from the sound engineers. Going to take about 2 weeks to upload it and get it through quality control from all the platforms. And it's read by yours truly.
Nice. And if you're not a person who loves to read books, you get the audiobook as well. But I hate reading books. My ADHD mind goes off, but
Yeah.
you written this book is so easy to read. And I love the stories you tell in it about the Chinese farmer. You talk about history with Karate Kid. Yeah, it's a lot of great stories mixed
Yeah.
in. It's an awesome book.
I wanted it to be like you're talking. I mean, when you're giving advice in a book, I wanted to be very careful that I was being honest and authentic with my audience, that they understood that, I'm not levitating on top of some mountain in Kathmandu, 3 feet above the ground. I've made every mistake in the book a dozen times over. And if I can act as a sensei, a teacher, and show you some of the pitfalls and holes along a well-worn path so that you can avoid them but still learn, that's my objective in it.
Yeah, and you can even earn ranks in the way of the Cobra as well. I got all
Yes,
the way
it
to black
got
belt in 2 days. Fastest black belt ever I
ah,
ever got
excellent.
was in 2 days.
Uh, yeah, the chapters are divided up into belts. I'm your sensei. It's the dojo of Cobra life, and Cobra is an acronym formed from the words character, optimization, balance, respect, and abundance. Okay.
And Sean, this February coming up, February 23rd, 24th, 25th, there's an event that we're both going to be at called the Voices Heard Summit. It's in Long Beach, California. You can get
It's going to be a
tickets.
tremendous.
You can get tickets right now on, I believe it's energymagazine.com,
Mhm.
INNERGY, but I will post that link in the show notes as well. Um,
Okay.
Sean Kanan is going to be doing the Way of the Cobra talk. I'm running the Karate Chop Bowling Seminar myself, and there'll be a lot of other great speakers and a lot of great workshops. And it's geared towards kids to make them better.
And it's in a beautiful location. It's at a hotel overlooking the water. You see the Queen Mary. I mean, it's a really, really beautiful spot to be doing this, and it's going to be a very special event with a lot of interesting, dedicated, out of the box people. So please come check it out and say hi to me and say hi to Tim.
Yes. All right, Sean, thank you again for coming on today.
Hey, Tim, thank you so much. I appreciate it.